thank you all for being a part of the opportunity to just share a little bit of information about how today went in Little Rock School District. It was a day that started off in a very positive way in the fact that we had all of our transportation groups arrive, and we had no buses that I'm aware of that were late, or no gaps in terms of drivers. And so that started off in a good way. And then, when we started to really kind of unravel the day, we were able to look at a lot of different things. I think one of the things besides transportation, of course, right next to that is safety. And so one of the things that we found out about our safety is that we had really only 13 out of our 75 security officers that weren't there. So a majority of our security team was in place today at the schools. We also had great help and support from Little Rock Police Department. We had all of our school resource officers in their spots, in their schools, and of course that's a good thing because the kids know those folks. We did have a large number of employees that were out in terms of our sick leave that people put into the system. We had 491 of our teachers that put in for sick leave out of 1,800 staff members. We had 116 that never called in, but they weren't at work like they were supposed to be. Those individuals, if we can verify that they truly weren't there, they didn't call in, those folks face a risk of a loss of pay. Loss of pay for an average teacher, if you just take an average teacher salary and then lose one-day pay, would end up being approximately $290 for that day. So that's something that I'm sure everybody has to deal with in terms of the choices they make on these things. Our classified staff, we had a higher participation, and that's also probably because those folks, their paychecks are that much tighter. 98 out of our 1,400 classified employees called in sick, and then we had 20 of our classified employees that never called in but didn't show up to work. So those are just the raw numbers. On attendance, I'll just kind of give you some things that I hope resonate. We had a much higher level of attendance absenteeism than we normally would on any given day. At the elementary was the least impacted. We had a little more than 50% of our kids that were in school today. There were 6,542 students that were in attendance, and we have 12,605 students. On the middle school, we had 2,132 students that were in attendance today, and we had 4,800 middle school students that we normally would expect. So that's just a little under 50%. So elementary, a little over 50%, middle school, a little bit under the 50% mark, and at the high school, that's where we had our most dramatic attendance issues. We had 1,475 students out today that were a part of our normal high school, and we normally have, if everyone shows up, 5,903 students. So you can kind of do the math there and basically say that it's roughly, if you're really ballparking it, about 25% of our students that we would expect were there for the high school. There are, as normal when you have something like this, a lot of rumors and things that get put out there of, classrooms just being empty or not having subs. We in fact had more than enough subs, and a part of that was that we did not have as many students. So if we had to, we could condense classes. I am not aware of any class where we actually combined and went above the number. I'm not saying that didn't happen, but I'm not aware of it. We did send some of our substitutes home. We had more than enough. That happened as an example because we had specific concerns come in about 3 of the high schools, Central, Parkview, and Hall High School. And when we looked into that, we actually found out that no, we had more than enough subs, and we actually sent some people home. So we did have that. We did utilize lesson plans. I've seen some activities today where it was people going on a field trip right here in the city, or whether it was in activities in the classroom. Some kids getting awards for recycling. So there were things that happened today that I think were positive, and we expect a smooth transition at the end of the day. We all know also that the Board of Education, State Board of Education meeting is happening right now, and that's where I'm headed next. And we know that the topic of the Memorandum of Understanding will be presented, as well as the potential of doing some things with board zones for our upcoming school board election. And then finally, I'll be presenting some things about attendance lines for our own school district as kind of the initial draft to shoot out to the public. And I'll stop there and take any questions.
So I interviewed a student, and she told me similar to what you're saying, but she said that she showed up to several classes and the classrooms were empty, but there were enough substitutes as far as like keeping monitor of the students, but she ended up being in combined with other classrooms where one substitute was in place. Her history test got canceled, her AP geography class got canceled, and mind you, she's in AP classes for the most part, so she said those classroom sizes were smaller. But she said her education was impacted today. She didn't get to take her history test, she missed her AP geography, she missed her English classes. I mean, she had a negative impact as of today as a result of this strike.
Well, and I guess I hope I am kind of referring to that too, that, you know, we did not have a normal day when you have that many students out at the high school, and I can understand why a teacher, and I don't know in the situation that you're talking about whether it was the teacher wasn't there to give the test or whether it was a situation where the teacher
There's not enough students there.
That's just where I was going to go. Yeah. So if the teacher was there, but then said, "Wow, I only have 5 kids or 10 kids out of the 25," then they probably did want to wait and take the test all at one time, and that's understandable. So, the
question is, there have been negative impacts, and I'd like on the student specifically. So I'd like to know how you guys are feeling about that. When you see the students who were prepared to take a test today and weren't able to as a result of this.
Well, one of the things that, I think I've said all along is that, any form of things that happen during this day, it's different than what we normally have on a given day. And when you have that many less students and you have less staff that's there, all we can do is try to provide everything we can to make it as normal as possible. And each setting's a little bit different, each classroom's a little bit different, but we do know that it's not our norm. And the shame of all that is that, we're on a roll as a district, both at the end of last year and this year, that is very positive. And so, the very thing that can help get us out of level 5 is having everybody in the seats, okay, whether that's students or our staff, because if we have those folks in our seats, then academic achievement does move forward.
Can we kind of talk about, I spoke with Miss Teresa Knapp Gordon, and I asked her if things do not go as planned tonight, I asked her would there be a strike tomorrow. She said that they have all their options on the table, and that's something that they're considering. Have you heard, or have you guys talked about this, if the strike goes on till tomorrow?
We will debrief at the end of today. In fact, we'll have team members coming in here this afternoon once school gets over and kind of look through everything in terms of the logistics of the day and, what are the things that we need to maybe adjust or tweak. The challenge, even on the number of 116 people that didn't call in or anything, that's when you don't know who's coming in and then you have to try to go find a person to go put into that spot, that's a challenge. If they do continue on tomorrow, then we will be prepared again to go through the exact same things that we did today in terms of having, we already have people going out into those buildings that are our staff or the department staff, or then utilizing the Will Sub contractor.
You mentioned the repercussions for a teacher who no show, no call, the loss of their pay, possibly from the $200 and some odd dollars. What about the teachers who called in sick but were on the picket line?
If there's a teacher that called in sick, and this is something that Ms. Gordon and I agreed on, that if there's someone that is sick and then does participate in the picket line, that could end up creating a different discipline situation for that individual. I hope that professionalism and understanding is that they would not do that type of thing. I think, and this is kind of a guess, but I think many of the people that called in sick just didn't want to get caught up in crossing the line or doing anything that might disappoint some of their colleagues.
So do you have an idea what the repercussion would be?
Well, it could be everything up to termination.
I mean, countless meetings, protests, today's strike. As a superintendent, what do you want to come out of today's meeting, out of this whole strike, out of this whole situation? Are you ready for this to be over?
Well, one of the unique things that I think we need to take a step back on is, there's several things that have happened that are positive that came from the state board, and that happened even last month. One of those things is that they chose not to break the district up. And so by not breaking the district up, it kept us whole, and that was one of the big targets. A second thing that happened that was equally huge is teacher fair dismissal rights were restored for the Little Rock educators. And remember, just a year ago, we were planning for a strike because we thought that might be the case. Now that's restored, so that's another positive thing that's occurred. The way that the agenda is set up, as I read it, there is no action today. So, that kind of puts, I guess, the LREA in an interesting position is, do you go strike when there's no action being taken? So, there's no votes. It's still a draft and still time for people to, provide information. So I'm sure it'll be hashed out a little bit within that state board today. That might refine or create some modifications, and then, again, the public and our teachers and our administrators all need to pitch in to give feedback on how that MOU is moving forward.
I'm sorry, this will have to be the last one. Your LRSD is up next.
So what's the solution?
Okay.
As you understand it, what is it that the teachers union is asking for today? What is it that the teachers were on strike for?
Well, I think that, the main thing that I can see that when you look at the MOU, there's really only one thing that really puts a thing where teachers say, here's something that's been taken away from us, and that is for LREA not to have bargaining rights until the level 5 is removed. So local board, we know, has already made a decision to come back in November of 2020, and that means that the only other element on that is that it's the MOU in its current draft form said that LRA wouldn't have bargaining rights until level 5 is removed. So again, it's kind of one of those weird things because level 5 is all about us doing the things we need to do in performance each day in the classroom, and the things we're on track in my mind with the State Department, with our district, and most importantly with our teachers to move things forward to have our F schools move out of the D category. We've made some real progress on that last year, and we've had a good fall. And so, my hope as superintendent is to get everyone back at work tomorrow and have students back in the district in full capacity. Thank you very much.